So yeah, we can most probably kick off. So thank you everybody that joined us. And yeah, Sharon actually, when myself and Sharon had a chat earlier the week and said, what is most probably a relevant topic to discuss. Sharon made the suggestion, which I think is it's most probably very relevant, and Dion also popped me a mail on it. Is a little bit, what is that impromptu opportunities we've got while we're doing financial planning? And then where's the point that we perhaps have got a formal coaching engagement, and, what is the differences there? And so that is the intro. I don't know, Sharon, please add to it. So yeah.
I think you've nailed it. I think you've nailed it there, Hendrik. Oh, maybe I can add is I think that the work that I'm doing with planners at the moment, I think that's where they get stuck most. It's almost like they it has to be one or the other. It's either got to be financial planning or coaching, and combining the two has been a little bit of a struggle. And I don't know if maybe it's probably entirely my fault. So I'm trying to now undo the damage that I probably did. So it's yeah. So I think having that conversation. I remember when I did the coaching course through UCT, Janine always spoke about water cooler coaching, which was you're almost standing at the water cooler and a colleague comes up to you and they've got an issue and you just carry that coaching way of being and you don't solve it for them and you just help them think through it. And then the coaching programs that we often do in life coaching and executive coaching and all the other, the pure forms of coaching. So maybe we can just unpack that a little bit today and see what comes out of the room.
Thanks for that, Sharon. So we're a small group, so really we can just, whoever wants to go and share, just go ahead. So yeah. Questions, thoughts, what comes up for you, so yeah.
Hendrik, if I can go, I think the challenge for us is, and I'm a new kid on the block. The challenge is we've been so long in the financial planning sector or financial planning area that we've been telling clients what to do and everything. So now you're in the coaching environment, so the transition is not easy. That's what I experienced, and I don't know, Sharon, if that is going to answer a little bit of your question, but yeah, I think the transition to move over from financial planning and telling the client what he needs to do and moving over to the coaching side of just having a conversation with the client, that's the challenge. And I think we discussed it in our group at Bloom as well earlier this last month. So yeah, that's from my side. I think it's just a challenge to move over and then to transform your practice or your business to incorporate the coaching section from that side. And that's what I'm experiencing. But I think if you're talking to a colleague that is going through a tough time, I think that's going to be coaching. Pure just coaching where you're going to help him through that difficult situation. But if we sit in front of clients, I believe we need to combine or combine the two. But that's a challenge and it's not going to happen overnight. We have to focus and work hard on it. That's my 10 cents.
Can I ask a question here, maybe that will help our thinking a little bit? I hear you, Andre, and I believe absolutely that's what you're saying is absolutely true there. The question I have is maybe how do we know when to do what? So how do we know when to coach, when to bring our coaching skills and question like you would your colleague that might be in a bit of a situation that they need to think through? Or when do we start telling? When do we start solving for our clients in a financial planning world? So imagine a financial planning environment, and when do you know which one you need to bring into the room, and how would you recognize that?
After all
That's
these
a
years.
really good question.
For sure. So Michael Steiner's three advice monsters is mine is telling. So that is at the forefront at the moment. But there's two parts in my mind that I want to throw in. The first one that I wonder about is, if my, and it links a little bit to Andre's point, is if my way of showing up is a coaching way of showing up, how will that look in the coaching world? And for the moment, perhaps let I just leave it there.
So are you saying in the financial planning world or in the coaching world? Because I mean, coaching is easy. We can solve that one.
No, I mean in my mind, and in my practice, I do not do product implementation, but I go all the way of the financial planning process up to helping the client create their own plan. But I do not create the plan. I do not do the numbers. The client does all of that. So in my mind is in that process, if I show up in a coach way of being, you know, uh, I cannot distinguish between being a planner and a coach.
Okay. Anybody else's thoughts?
Sharon, I'm working for Discovery. I'm a business executive at Discovery, so I've got a franchise with advisors, but I also I've got a advisor code, so I do see clients, and then I started now with the coaching thing. So for me, it was tough in the beginning because, and the way that I'm doing it now is I've said to myself, if I don't have the permission of the individual, I can't do the coaching. So I'm
Okay.
trying to get the yes. So I will ask the question is, will you allow me to coach you if it's a free session? And when I actually go into the real coaching session, I feel it's the contracting that for me is important there, where it will actually be, what is my expectation from you when I do this, and what is it that what am I going to deliver? What is my value add that I'm going to give through to you? And then it feels to me that is a yes, because it's a contracting that we are doing, yeah. But yeah, it's three balls that I'm juggling at the moment because as Hendrik just said, I'm exactly also before I realize I'm start telling. So I really need to take the hats off and take the financial planner hat off and put it aside, and then only put that up when we come to the implementation side.
Yeah.
Where we get to where now this is what we said you want to do and how are we going to get there. So it's different hats that I need to wear at the moment, but it is a juggle.
Okay, so I'm hearing there's something about contracting and then trying to figure out, if there is a place for telling still, and how do you do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I mean, so this is difficult. I think this is the biggest struggle of getting coaching into your financial planning world with your client, because we recognize that I hear you, Hendrik, and I lean towards what you do because I feel that throughout the process, if you ask questions, it's more powerful than actually telling the client. I've realized now over many years of training that people hear very little of what you tell them. So the only way that you can get them to actually hear you is to ask a question and get them to tell you what they know, and then. But I'm wondering, is there a space for this? Because there's a water cooler coaching that happens almost in your financial planning world as well. And how do we recognize when that's what the client needs instead of us solving for them if we're going to solve?
Perhaps a
I think
model
from my
just.
side again.
Sorry, Andre, go.
Hendrik.
Jump.
Yeah, I think that over the last week I've had 2 or 3 interactions with clients that haven't saved up enough. And we went through that whole coaching conversation. And to come back to your question is, where did I move over to the selling? Is where we said, okay, so you've got a problem. What are we going to do about it? And we identified the problem and went through the whole conversation. And at the end of the day, we said, okay, what are we going to do about it? And that's, I think, where you're going to then go switch over to the financial planning side to say, okay, you need to up your RA. You either up your RA, work longer, whatever you need to do. But that's where I think the financial planning advice is coming in, where I'm going to advise the client what he needs to do to catch up with the shortfall.
Okay. Yeah, Renata?
I've got a question more than a statement as well that maybe can also be woven in here. How much of asking is also feeling? And what I mean by that is when communicating with the client and speaking, how much of that is also how much of that asking is also when you are truly listening is feeling? Because a client will be speaking to you, but what you are hearing, you also have to truly feel to understand the answer. Because sometimes it's very difficult for people to articulate their truth. But you can, if you really are connected to that person, if you are listening from your heart and from your gut, you will feel before you hear. Or is that not everyone?
No, I think that's coaching, right? So, I mean, that's your coaching way of being. You're listening with everything, all your senses. You're not just listening with your ears. So I think that's easy for us to recognize. But when do we have to step into telling, if at all? So I think that's the question that I want us to think about, because if we can recognize when it's a time to tell, if it really is one, I don't know. This is what I'm asking. Is there always an opportunity to start solving? Is that not what we do in financial planning? And so when do you know when? Sorry, my dog, she's now telling me there's someone at the door.
So Sharon, perhaps another question from my side, but framing it a little bit, is what if we change telling to sharing a distinction?
What then comes up in the room if it's not telling and it's sharing a distinction? Maybe you want to be clear on a distinction, Hendrik, so that we, from a financial planning world, what would that look like?
So the distinction in terms of most probably my and Sharon's world of coaching is where we share either a model or a picture or a story with a client, but we're not telling the client, so that the client can reflect, and we can perhaps bring awareness to the client so that they can better reflect on what's going on. And that's not saying, I feel the similar like you, or I've had a similar problem than you. So it's not that. It is, this is what I read in an article, or even give the client the article to read, and that they reflect on whatever comes up with for them. Send them to go and watch a YouTube video or whatever the case may be.
So there's lots of thinking. Wait, yes, who wanted to talk now before I interrupt? Louis.
Yeah, I think the storytelling is a good one. Definitely where you can. I've got a very difficult client that doesn't believe in retirement annuities, and yesterday I sat with an old 75-year-old client of mine with that they can't manage with their 27,000 rand per month, and the old man was in tears. And that's a great story that I'm going to take with me going forward, Hendrik, to say, this is my experience with this client. He was in tears. He sat in front of me. He said, Andre, we're not making it with 27,000 rand. How can you help? How can you assist? And that's part of the stories. And I think all of us in financial planning got various stories to tell with experiences that we had with clients. But I think just to come back to Renata as well, your question is, the feeling definitely, because this client that is so difficult about the retirement annuity, she's scared. She's really scared, and that's why she was so aggressive with me and my staff. It's the fact that she knows that she's not where she needs to be, and I think but it's also part of the coaching. We need to practice it, to listen and to feel what the clients really want to say to us. He's not aggressive against me. She's not aggressive against my clients. She's not angry at my staff or myself. She's angry at herself. And that's what we need to unpack and help her and assist her to get through that. So yeah, that is also something that we need to, especially males, we need to feel and listen and see what is really read between the lines if we sit in front of clients.
Deon, it looks like you want to say something.
How does that look? Yeah, the thing is it's interesting. I'm not sure whether everybody's perception of coaching is the same. For me, it's holding up the mirror. And I mean, I read a book a while back where the guy said, only speak if you can contribute to the silence, if you can do anything better than keeping silent. And I hear what Andre say about the storytelling, but or sharing a story, but that's also telling. So for me, it's quite difficult. I mean, take a concept like inflation. How do you not tell a client what is inflation? You can't do it while you're coaching. You understand? So for me, it's almost like, and the whole coaching process for me takes quite a while before people get there. When Sharon, you say a lot of times the magic actually happens between the sessions, and I usually only meet with the client every 2 weeks to give them enough time to reflect on what we said, and if there's a little bit of homework, then they've got time to do that. And afterwards, in the next meeting, you actually hear what happened for the client. So yeah, it's for me, it's just difficult to. I find a lot of times the client, especially if it's a new client, something happens with the relationship where you start coaching. It's more personal, it's more intense in the moment. And I think there's a lot of clients that the moment you offer products, they're like, okay, wow, is this guy actually offering me the best product that's available? Are they doing in my interest? Now, obviously, during the coaching, it's a little bit better because there's a kind of a trust relationship that builds. But I find a lot of times the transition for me from coaching and getting a client to a point where you need to now actually start telling and actually do the advice, give the advice and offer the product. That for me is sometimes a little bit of disjointed. An interesting thing, Hendrik, that I want to ask you is, what is the reason why you don't do implementation, if I may ask?
For a few reasons, Deon. The first thing is I do coaching for independent financial advisors, and that will be a conflict of interest immediately if I do product implementation. Secondly, I don't want to get into the advice or the product advice world and compliance and all of that. So
okay.
That's why I've got students that's on the course that I can refer the clients to. So yeah.
Okay. No, because for me that's the ideal world. I mean, it was fantastic when I did Sharon's course, and I had to coach 3 people anonymously, and then after that I did the UCT course, and again it was fantastic because there was no product implementation, there was no talking about products. It was really just helping clients to resolve their own problems, and we all know that problems are already in their head. You just need to help them extract it. So yeah, in the ideal world, that is what I would like to do, is not implementation at all. But yeah, we're not there yet.
So can I ask a question just as a group? Because I mean, I think, so you gave a great example now, Deon, about how do I not tell when a client doesn't understand inflation or doesn't when I'm talking about inflation. I think we all have our own ideas about concepts, right? So if you take inflation as a concept, your clients probably have some idea of what inflation is for them. And I'm wondering, so I mean, this is what Hendrik was talking about, if we use a coaching way of being, you're not coaching a client around inflation. You're bringing your coaching way of being, so you're asking questions instead of telling. Now, I don't know I'm sure we've all heard of that story around how do you sell a pencil or how do you sell a pen. I think if you Google it, you'll come up with a YouTube clip. And I mean, so even selling is asking questions. I mean, you don't tell somebody what they need. It's not effective, right? So even in that clip, if you see what they'd say is that you ask as many questions as you can, and as you're asking questions, the person that you're trying to sell this pencil to actually starts understanding why they need the pencil, what kind of pencil they need, how often they're going to have to replace that pencil, how many pencils do I need to buy because I replace my pencil so often. So it's through your questioning that gets the client to see new possibilities. And then you don't ever have to sell a thing because they will tell you, I need these many pencils. It needs to have this kind of lead. And I need you to come to my office every 3 weeks because that's how often I need to replace my pencils. So it's like, so that's, if you think about how we communicate with clients through a coaching way of being, that's what it is. So inflation is the same thing, right? So I would ask a question like, what do you understand about inflation? What's your experience of inflation? What is the biggest impact that you see inflation having on the way that you live your life? So, I mean, that's a really strange question, but anyway, but maybe it's relevant to that particular client. So how they're answering your questions is what's going to bring the next question to life for you. And all you're doing is you're helping them see what's past that periphery of what I currently understand. You're broadening their view of the world, and maybe it's just broadening their view of inflation and how they need to think about inflation differently so that when you're moving into the process of financial planning, they're starting to understand things that maybe they didn't understand before through your questioning and not through your telling. So I don't know, that's a challenge. I don't know, how does everybody else feel about, even through implementation, there's questions, right? So I mean, Hendrik, I understand you don't implement for a very good reason. I understand that completely. But those of you that do implementation, that's a coaching event for me. Because if the client is struggling to implement, what's going on for that client that we don't understand yet? Or that the client doesn't see it. That's more important, right? Andre's sitting there, our coach in the room. So, I mean, I think that you need to just think about it a little bit differently. I'm hoping that this session today is going to broaden that thinking a little bit. Okay, I'm going to shush now because now I'm telling again.
Jon, can I ask you a question on what you just shared? What of storytelling is telling for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we share experiences to get people to shift their minds. And for me, yeah, it's a difficult question. Yeah, especially a lot of times in the past, well, a lot of salespeople, when they want to get people to make a decision, they tap into the emotion of fear. So they would tell somebody, you know what, I just had a client and he passed away and his family's sitting with nothing and there's no food in the house, whatever. You understand? You're actually tapping into an emotion where that is not the way that I want to do business. So that is what was so amazing for me about coaching is whatever the solution looks like, everybody's solution is unique. But whatever that looks like, if you ask the right questions, eventually the guy's going to get to his own solution. And that's for me the main thing. It must be my plan for the client. It must be his or her plan. So the moment I tell them, look, this client of mine passed away, his family is sitting now with no food in the house. I think you should take out life insurance. That's my plan for him. You understand? And that's what coaching is so powerful for me is if you've got a relationship built on coaching and becomes the client's plan for the client. If any other advisor knocks on their door and tries to sell them something, immediately they're going to realize this is this guy's plan for them, not their plan for them. And you understand? So that's really the main thing is I'm afraid of, not afraid, that's not the right word. I'm cautious of it must not be my plan for the client, it must be their plan.
So how can we use stories to bring awareness?
The thing for me is I mean, I've been in a lot of coaching sessions with Sharon also. She never she hardly tells stories. She just asks questions. And for me, that's actually more powerful. So I understand here and there, it can be relevant, but I think we are so eager to solve problems that we jump in too quickly with the story before we try to get the client to get there themselves. So I'm not saying storytelling shouldn't be included in the process at all. I think one must be really, really cautious when you're going to use it. I think it's that Steiner guy that you referred. Is it the guy that wrote that Advice Trap book? Michael Steiner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was he that said, you really must just open your mouth if you can improve on the silence. If you can add more value than just listening.
I think that was Nancy Klein.
Was it Nancy Klein? But anyway, so for me, look, I don't have all the answers. That's why I'm in the session. I would like to know more. And the question I'm asking, I'm not trying to confront or prove something or push my opinion. I'm also trying to find the right solutions.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious about that. Thanks, Dion. So yeah.
If I may, Dion, I think when you were speaking, what came up for me, and what I heard, because it resonated with me, is that being cautious of manipulation.
Yes.
You know, when you're communicating with a client, because and that's always in the back of my mind, is with great power comes great responsibility. And when you have people that really trust you, what comes out of your mouth really does have the power to manipulate. And that's where you have to be so cautious. So that's what I heard, is when you do storytelling, even with the kind of questions, you can ask leading questions and still manipulate. So whether you ask leading questions or whether you tell stories to suit your narrative, you can still manipulate. And again, it brings me back to, and it may sound silly, but being pure of heart. It's really wanting to do what's best for the client. So don't think for 1 minute, because you're not telling stories, that by asking questions only, that you can't manipulate. I think it is the intent that you go with. What's going to be best for the client, because certain clients, and I have found that, is certain clients, the more you're going to ask them, if you're just going to go down the question route, you may actually alienate that client, because they want to have the questions, but at some point they want to have a discussion more than just the questions, where other clients want you to lead the question route for them to get to their own answers. So again, you need to have that feel of what this client may work with best, may need best. But I hear what you're saying. It's maybe that aversion to manipulation. I think for me, that was also a big driving force as to why I didn't get into the product side of things. I have a very clear understanding of it, but I've got no desire to step into the product side, very much like what Hendrik does. I've got the knowledge side, but I've got no desire to enter the product space, if I can call it that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a after the FPI, we had a meeting with Sharon, the guys that did the class with her, the course with her, and a lot of the guys were upset with one of the speakers at the FPI conference, and because they said this guy manipulates. And I said to them, well, what's so bad about it? If I go to a chiropractor, he manipulates my back for my own good. And that thing that you're saying about being pure at heart, you can actually, that is what it's all about. I think for me, where I find, and this is just my experience, where I start sharing stories and in the way telling is when I get sort of not looking for the right word. Ongeduldig. What's that in English? Impatient.
Impatient, yeah.
I want to solve. I've heard enough. Now I want to solve. So and for me, when I did the course with Sharon and with UCT, I was patient because there was a specific article I was looking for. I had to write up this whole coaching exercise and take it. So I wasn't there to solve. I was there to take the person through the whole process, and I was very patient. And that is actually where I saw the greatest results with the coaching. So yes, I just try to be very cautious not to jump in too quickly. But like Renata said, sometimes you have to stop asking the questions. You have to start either mentoring or advising and eventually get to the implementation side of things. And I mean, Sharon, we use fantastic, so with Old Mutual that Sharon works for, they've got the most amazing tool for cash flow analysis. And I mean, that's quite a, how can I put it? Yeah, to take the client from the coaching into the product and start showing them graphs and telling them, it's all challenging for me. I struggle with the whole transition.
Johan, perhaps, and I'm going to share a distinction that comes from the work from Dr. Lazenby in terms of the scenario selling. He's, if you look at his model, he says the client, you engage with a client, the client already knows what they need to do. So you can just implement. Then the next phase is they need knowledge. So you can approach it in two ways. The one way is, to Sharon's way is, and the beautiful example is actually for me in neuroscience. I don't know who of you saw that, where the guy actually started learning somebody to play tennis. And all what they did is they didn't tell them one thing about the rules of tennis. They just started throwing balls at them and give them a tennis racket. And like in 20 minutes, they were playing a full tennis game. Just by the practice. And I think that's a little bit, how can you ask questions? Perhaps tell a story of how Popeye bought tomatoes and 10 years later, the tomatoes cost more. And how is that going to impact your life, etc.? Because the thing is of storytelling, it must be far enough from the client's reality. You just want to create awareness. The third part in terms of the scenario selling is to say the client has never done this. They never set up a trust. They do not understand what is the benefits of the trust, etc. That's mentoring and coaching that's needed there, because they must understand the emotions of that, what is important for them, what is their values, etc. And then the last part, interesting in scenario selling, is what he says. It's the ultimate coaching engagement, actually, because that tool of yours becomes the biggest distinction you can have, because you can now actually model for the client the impact on their lives. So you can have the greatest coaching conversations out of that, because now you can say, okay, what is the income you need? What about if you go and visit your clients overseas. And with each of those conversations you're having, you're changing the values in Wealth Integrator, and all of a sudden the client haven't got enough money at age 78, but you're actually planning until age 95. So that's 100% distinction. That tool becomes a distinction for you to have the coaching conversation around.
So it's interesting how we started the conversation today around when do we do water cooler coaching? When do we do just have an intervention of coaching or just carry a coaching way of being for our clients? And when do we design a coaching program, like in a life coaching world where I would have programs for my clients, you know, so we haven't actually answered that question, but I think what we have done is we've gone back to when do we tell and when do we coach? So I don't know, is anyone seeing something clear now after the conversation that we've had over the last 20 minutes around that? Come on, wait, where did Hendrik go? Oh, the Hendrik you are there. Sorry, you moved around the screen. I thought you'd left the room.
The hand up, Sharon.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry. Yes, you can call me Kiamo.
Okay, good, because I
Yes.
wasn't going to try and pronounce it.
Yeah, so I did the financial coaching course with Hendrik, and I think the difference for me is that I don't have any financial planning background. So actually, I'm a project manager by profession, but I do have some financials that I do within my role. And so I accidentally fell into coaching when I saw a group on Facebook and I was very interested. So I followed that group and it was something that I fell in love with and I wanted to do. And so I enrolled for the course with Hendrik and I'm thinking the challenge for me is not knowing all of the products that are there. I am only focused on coaching, and it hasn't been that long that I've started, but I think with the group that I also followed on Facebook, it was more of asking the questions to the client, um, getting what the client wants from like the why they want to be coached, what it is they want. So for those that I've already talked to or the clients that I've gotten, and it's just a handful for now, it is more of goal planning. I'm working with young professionals at this moment. And so it's people that I am in the same industry with that I've seen the challenge for them was not being able to use their money correctly or not being able to plan for their financial goals. So that's really what I'm focused on. But I am joining these calls to just learn a lot from you guys. Um, maybe one day I will also go into the financial planning. I don't know. But for now, I just wanted to mention that for me, it's just coaching. It's just there's a framework that I use that it's just questions and getting to know what the client wants. And so it's been going good for now. And I don't know if there are any advices as to whether I should maybe also enroll in a financial management course, or that's not necessary because I'm hearing everyone saying that it's difficult to transition from planning into coaching. And so, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimo.
That is so interesting. I had a conversation a couple of months ago with somebody who he's in the financial planning. He's actually a fund manager, and but he's very interested in the coaching stuff as well. And they wanted to get some people into their business that could advise clients around fund management. that kind of thing. I don't know. They've got a boutique little fund management business. And he said it's easier for him to bring coaches in, qualified coaches in, and teach them how to do the fund, like the technical stuff around what they do around investments, than it is for him to take an investment specialist, investment manager, and teach them how to do coaching. And I'm wondering, it's because we're so used to telling, right? Because that's our job. That's where our value lies. I need to solve this for you. I need to apply all of my knowledge so that you can get all the value that you need out of me. So yeah, I can see maybe, yeah, you might have an easier route into financial planning than what it is the
Yeah, I
other way
remember
around.
that. Yeah, I remember that's what Hendrik also once said when I told him I was in this class with everyone else that's in the financial industry. And I was like, no, Hendrik, I don't think I can do this because I don't have any financial background. And he said, no, actually, for you, it can be much easier to become a coach because you don't have all of these planning and advising background. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Oh, well, good luck for your journey. It's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Thank you.
All right. No, I saw. Okay. So yes. Anybody? Yes,
Sharon,
Cindy. Yes.
you know what I was just as you were saying that about that boutique fund manager, I just had like something rise up in me, triggering me. So much of who we are in certain job roles is identity related. So I came in, as you know, and I immediately went into there's got to be like I can't be a financial advisor. That just doesn't work for me. So I started searching for something right from the start. So I didn't feel like I fit into the category of coming in and now having to unlearn. It was easier for me, but I've noticed when I've looked at other people and things that they've said on Twitter or, that kind of thing, like they almost have such an issue with the coaching side and the life first side and the client first side. And I think for me, it's wrapped around identity. Like I do this, I'm a fund manager. I select, funds for my clients, or I understand asset classes or whatever the case may be. And I'm just wondering how much if we strip ourselves away, which is exactly what you need if you're doing look, I don't profess to be a coach. I feel very comfortable in the fact that I've selected to do a coaching way of being through the financial planning process. But I just wonder if we strip ourselves away and we really go to that client servant heart. Renata, you said a different thing, but I call it servant-heartedness. Just go there to serve and just go there to say, it's not about me, it's about the client. And so the word that I'm using is identity. Like, what is our identity? And then how do we go forward?
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone else has something to add to Cindy's comment here. That's very valuable.
No, that's very valuable. So
yeah. So Cindy, any coaching course, sorry, I mean, Hendrik, we know the coaching, sorry. So any coaching course, which I think is it's around, and I think that's what it is. It's like you're trying to, if you don't do a course where you're starting to see yourself and your identity and how your relationship to yourself, right? Then it's not a coaching course, because I think that's what, for me, I've always recognized with all the courses that I've done, and it's probably why I do them, because I get to see more of who I am. And only once you can identify with who you truly are, and not the labels we put on ourselves, like I'm a fund manager or I'm a financial planner or whatever it is. This is who I am, and these are my biases, and this is my view of the world, and this is my motivation and my values. If I don't understand that clearly, my relationship to myself and others and money, how do I relate to money? Because that's all similar, right? We can see patterns in all of that. Then I won't be able to coach somebody else. So I think maybe that's what comes out of it for me now. When you say this, is like, okay, so my identity, I'm so attached to it. It's who I become, even though that's not who I am, because I do it. This is what I do on a daily basis. This is my value. And then how do I now do something that is not that? That actually I need to let go of this value that I've accumulated about myself. I have to completely be a blank canvas again, so that I can see this person in front of me, So I can see what their values are, what their motivations are, and because that's what coaching is. So is that, do you think, what's getting in our way? Because we have to keep identifying with this value that we bring into the world.
It's constant work. It's constant, so I think that's what it is. Just every day reminding myself to leave myself at the door, you know what I mean? That I'm not here about all these things that are important to me. And that's really tricky, because then you're also trying to fit in with a meeting framework and a time framework. I think it's tricky, but I've let myself off the hook of all of this stuff, and I'm just here to serve, and I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not beating myself up after each appointment like I used to. And if I can just get one thing right in the next meeting, better than I did the time before, I'm good. Because I started getting very caught up in, how do I do this? And I had a client here the other day she was really, really struggling with something. And I thought, this is a perfect coaching opportunity, but I'm not going there, because then I need to step into something completely separate. As it's already been said, there needs to be contracting around it. Potentially there needs to be costing around it. I'm not there yet, but that could have easily gone into a coaching. And I just thought, I'm her financial planner with a coaching way of being. I sent her home with homework. I've left it, and I'll pick it up next time she comes.
So
I guess, sorry, Hendrik, you go.
No. So there's something for me that comes up also out of this conversation, and certainly thanks for triggering that, is the question most probably for me that I can ask myself is around all of this is, what of my concerns is not met if I show up in a certain way? Or what of my concerns do I want to be addressed to show up in a certain way? Andre, you've got a thought there that's going through your mind. I think you're muted, or you're talking to somebody else.
No, you just got to wait to put a question that you can disturb us totally, and we don't know where we're going. Just the way you ask the questions, like the question to you, Dion, as well. You know how to ask questions.
Yeah, I agree with Cindy. I think we've been so long, for such a long time, financial planners, that we struggle to sort of detach ourselves. I've mentioned to you guys before, in my office at work, I've got a massive blank canvas. And the reason it's up there is to remind myself every day I walk into the office, I must be a blank canvas. When I sit with a client, it mustn't be my perceived ideas. I must totally wipe my mind clean. And I remember, because we are so, with all of these scores that talk about your structure of interpretation, we're so strongly bound to our structure of interpretation that we struggle to get away from it. But the moment we can do that, we can be sincere and we can be curious. And I will never forget, while I was doing Shan's course, and I think I might have started with the UCT course, the one day I realized I've actually changed the way that I think about stuff was, and this is probably going to sound very weird, but I'm just going to be honest. We run a lot, my wife and I, and we were running the one day, or for a long time, in our neighborhood, there's a guy, he's like a homeless guy, but it's a male, but he dresses up and he puts on makeup and everything. And every time I go past him, I think to myself, what's your bloody problem? And I remember while I went through all these coaching courses, the way that I thought about things started becoming different. And I will never forget the day that I really realized that I started changing. Is I was running past this guy and I thought to myself, yes, like, this guy looks interesting. I wonder what his story is. And for me, that's the main thing, is that we get so hung up in our own issues and things that we're busy and we want to get stuff sorted and done and we want to fix stuff very quickly, that it's sometimes difficult to keep ourselves. And I started doing it lately, but I'm not doing enough. In the mornings, try to meditate just to calm myself, get rid of the rubbish of yesterday, clear my mind, and get myself in a space where I can be 100% present when I sit with a client. Because I think that's part of my problem. A lot of times I'm not present. I'm stuck in my own stuff. And I listen to this guy and I think to myself, okay, I've got the answer. Let's just give you the answer. Let's just tell you what the problem is, or let's use a story to get you there. But yeah, I think the patience thing is sometimes for me the problem.
Wondering what Andre has to say about all of this.
Yeah, what can I say? I think it's a lot of valuable insights that came out here. And I think it's just going back, and I heard it mentioned, I think by Renata, that it's what is your intention? And to just go back to that and say, what is my intention in this conversation? And that will probably clarify a lot, because then are you telling, are you advising, or are you exploring, are you asking the questions? What is it that you're actually doing? And yes, I think sometimes we're so programmed to act in a certain way or to approach in a certain way, depending on our background or what we've learned. And then many times we have to unlearn a lot of things to actually do things more effectively. And looking at coaching and coming from if you come from a financial background where you have been selling products, it might be quite an adjustment. So I think it's just about what is the intention behind all of it, and when are you doing what, and be clear on that. But yeah, I think it's a great conversation actually, and I think it triggered a lot of things, and yeah, maybe we need to explore it a little bit more in some future sessions.
Linking to what Andre is saying, this week I just read something that I've read previously, but sometimes if you read something again, then it just strikes you as, and Renata actually touched the first time about it, is that building trust with clients. And in ontology, we say trust is actually an assessment, because I assess if I can trust Sharon, and Sharon assess herself if she is trustworthy. So both sides. And then Alan Sealer said, or he wrote in one of his books, interesting, on trust as an assessment. He says the ultimate trust, and it links to also what Andre Retief now just said, is the ultimate level of trust is taking care of the concerns of others, and that the other person take care of your concerns in a relationship. And that was just so beautiful for me again when I read it, because that's most probably ultimate relationship we want to have as coaches and as advisors, is that we take totally care of the concerns of the client, and that the client also takes care of our concerns, because then we've got the ultimate relationship.
Yeah, I really like that. So I'm wondering, Hendrik, we're getting to the end now. Yeah. Should we try and bring the topic again? Because I don't think we've had the topic around coaching and a coaching program, and I still think that's important for us to unpack. Okay, and we can maybe bring it in the next session.
Yeah, I think I had the same feeling. I think that's a brilliant discussion, because I think that could be a nice flow, in it, and where does it come in, and do I want to make it part of my value proposition as a planner? And I think that's all those questions then that starts coming up. So now, will such a program look, and when do I distinguish that, take it out, and where will it add more value to the client ultimately? Because it's the client's agenda and what is important for the client, and what will add value to the client. So all those questions then pops up in my mind. So if we start thinking about that, so yeah.
Yes, and all of Cindy's questions, like how do I
Yeah.
charge for it, and how do we engage now? What does our engagement look like? Yeah, how often do we see each other? Yeah, absolutely, and how do we contract around that? Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that conversation.
And not to forget the outcome, the
Yes.
expected outcome, not only for the other party, but for us. What would we truly wish to see for the client? You know, because the client may have one expectation, but so often as the journey goes, that expectation falls away, because as the client grows from our side, the expectation will completely change. We can see that journey, and that expectation will change, because as that client grows, different things come out.
Yeah.
So,
Recontracting.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's important as well. And how does that journey flow through the program and the contract?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Okay.
Okay, I think the rest of the year is planned.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you so
Thanks
much,
for
Kendrick.
joining, and it was really valuable. Thanks. All of the
Thanks,
best.
everyone.
Thank you.
If you're taking a long weekend, have a good long weekend. So yeah, all of the
Thank
best.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.